All right, welcome everyone. This is a Viper Professional Training and Support webinar. Today's date is April 2nd, 2019. This is a Tuesday night webinar, and the title of tonight's webinar is Scalp and Take Quick Profits or Runners. When and why? And as everyone knows that's been to our webinars or our live trading room, everything that we say and do at Viper Trading Systems is for educational purposes only. Futures trading, Forex trading, any kind of financial instruments trading involves risk. Therefore, there's always risk of loss. You should only trade discretionary capital, and that is money that you can afford to lose. Nothing said in this webinar. Other webinars we have, our live trading room or anything else with Viper Trading Systems, should never be construed as trading or investment advice. And as always, everyone does trade at their own sole discretion. Any questions on the disclaimer? All right, if not, we're going to go ahead and get started. All right, first off, how many of you have just gotten so good at being able to see a chart that you know which direction to take the trade? Because that's absolutely the most important thing that I can think of, because if you take a trade too early, short to give an example, they can just come down a little bit and slap you. You might get a scalp, you might not. How many of you stay with the trend? And how many of you draw trend lines and try to get quick scalps? Just curious. Won't mention a single name. Okay? Because, for instance, when I look at a chart like this, matter of fact, I traded this last night. Well, I helped Linda trade hers is what I did. But anyway, on the chart here, we were actually looking, and I was trying to teach her how to see on these charts, where would this thing be? Well, we can't tell right now because we have to draw some lines on it and get some data on it. So let's go ahead and get some data on it. Okay. Minnie says, I do draw trend lines, but this morning was scared to take it with the red background, even thought I saw CL bounce off support. Well, one thing I want to show something on that too, because, when I actually took that trade, remember, I was in that thing from, if I remember right, 74, wasn't I? And there was definitely a red background. So, that's one area that you almost have to train your mind to see, all the lightnings. Now, we couldn't keep these charts literally staying green, for instance, until you get rid of the biggest swings, because you just wouldn't get some good trades. 72-ish, yeah. Okay. So, like right now, to give an example on this chart, diagnosing this, I can clearly see without even seeing anything on bars, I can pretty much see that that's my low. Okay. That's my low. I've got a high, a low, and a higher high. So that is definitely my low. Now, I think in my own mind, each day that I trade, that I'm not really looking to take this thing short until it takes this out. Okay. And what I like to do personally is it's got to take it out, and then it's got to come back and kiss it. Okay. Because if you don't do that, you're going to get in this little trade that actually is just so fast, and you won't make any money because your fill is going to be terrible. Okay. So what you'd wait for, if this was to break, you'd want it to break, come back and kiss, and roll. Okay. That's super, super important. Because, looking at this, I mean, just draw your lightning 3 and you'll clearly see that you're in a major uptrend, right? Okay. Now, to me, you're not actually taking out this uptrend until you take that out. So I'm looking for pullbacks. All right. Now, I know I can't go this far back by looking at this chart. It's not going to go way down here. You see what I mean? Because it's already been there. So here's our low. Here's our high, here's our low, and here's our higher high. So if this comes back, I'm looking for, like, say, a thrust up and pull back into here. I'm looking for a thrust up and even pull back into here. Okay, and that's what I just kind of set in my mind, that I'm going to be watching for that, to happen in real time. Now, for this to actually give me any kind of a trade, it's got to at least retrace some, though, because you're already in a thrust. Okay, so let's look at the actual chart. Now, this was at 5 o'clock yesterday afternoon, and I don't know if any of you trade that or not, but you can get some decent trades. You just have to be a little bit careful. Here's the actual chart right here. Now, wouldn't you know, on Friday afternoon, they had basically closed this silly thing, and they were already up at the high. They were actually taking out the high even. Okay, so as a trader, we have to look and say, okay, what am I going to do with this trade? Like I wanted to trade, help to show her last night that you can very possibly get a decent little, pop trade. Okay, but you want to be careful at 5 o'clock because you don't want to, actually just go ahead and just, hit the trigger and, take this as it busts up. You got to get a pullback. So when I draw on my charts, I see these swings. You saw them a minute ago on that black chart, but I see a swing there. I see a swing here, but see that one's basically right here even has already been tested. So this one hasn't right here. All right, notice this one has. See it right there? Thrust, retrace, tested it. So then you raise it up to your next one. All right, and then you even look for this, for instance. Here's a swing here, and here's a swing. Now, in my mind, I've got these areas ready in case they pull back to them, and I watch predictors, okay, because predictors kind of know where this price action is really going, okay, because of the way the price action is, it actually knows it. Now, what we're going to talk about tonight is a little bit more scalping, okay. So what you want to do if you're going to scalp, I went ahead and killed the template on scalping. I think I did because I want to build it again for everyone to show everybody how to do it from scratch. So if you go into Object Trader, okay, what you really want to do is you want to figure out how many do I want to do on a scalp, how quick do I want to take profit, and how quick do I want to go to break even, okay? Or if you're going to actually watch it and just move your stop, that's also a possibility. Okay, so right up here, for instance, see, normal, it's defaulted at 12, 20, 25, and 40. When we put this script out several years ago, we actually defaulted it at 5, 10, 15, and 20, remember? And you can still go back to that if you want to. Okay, you can definitely go back to that. Now, I wouldn't recommend jumping in like 4 contracts on even scalping unless you know right where they're going to hit their head. And, sometimes like when we draw in the room, you can definitely tell where they're going to hit their head and you can get a good trade. Okay, but let's say, for instance, that you just do 3. And what I would personally probably want to do is something like this. I want to try to get 8 ticks. I want to try to get 10, and I want to try to get very possibly even 20, but then I move my target accordingly. So if I was to get this, I'd have 18, about 38 ticks, okay, but only having to get to 20. All right, so if I set that as my little template, and you can even turn your max quantity on to whatever you want it to be also. Okay, if for instance, if you just want your max quantity, and I really need to do mine on 3 max to begin with, simply because when Linda started on her second evaluation part, she can't do over 3, okay, until she gets to 1500. She's a little over halfway there. All right, so that needs to actually be 3, no more than that, and then right click and set your default. Okay, now that this is actually set, I want it to remember it, so I'm going to just simply tell it I want that to be my template. Okay, so I'm going to call this my scalp. We'll just call it scalp oil. All right, and then when I do that and click this is ready to go. Okay, notice that it's 8, 10, 20. All right, now I could have actually set this for quantity of 3 if I want this to be my scalp. You see what I mean? That way I don't have to change it. So I can simply go back into my strategy, disable it, and then go in here and say, you know what? I think I'll go ahead and we've got 8, 10, and 20, and I want to go ahead and do interval of my 3. Okay, that would be my scalp template. Okay, so if I do 3 there, and then I'm going to save it again, scalp oil, and click OK. Whoop. Got to turn it on. All right, now you'll notice that it's on, well, it should have been. Did I not save that? Just a second. I thought I saved it. Maybe I didn't. I got interval of 3. No, not interval of 3. I want interval of 1. Sorry about that. I want quantity of 3. There we go. Hit the wrong line. Bifocals, trifocals. All right. Now we should be good this time. Let's make sure we are. There we go. We got 3, 8, 10, and 20. So that is a scalp, setup for the type of trade that I want to jump into. Now notice that my break-even trigger is at 20 right here. Well, you wouldn't want that either, would you? Because you want it to really break even, fairly close to maybe even 10 or 12 or something like that. So you can go back in and even change that. Okay, let's just do that. So our break-even trigger, instead of 20, would be like 12. Okay, and that should be good enough right there. And then we'll resave our template again. And activate it. Now you'll notice each time that this is now going to remember all this that I told it to do. Now if I just put Object Trader back on without going to a template, it goes to whatever my default is. Okay, so let's just see real quick if we can get a little trade at the open. All right, so this is actually at 5 o'clock right now. Now the market, when it opens, by the way, it moves fairly quickly. Okay, notice that it kind of popped up. It's 5 o'clock. Trying to come and give us a little trade. We've got our lines drawn. We're waiting on predictor. And I'll probably, if it just shows up, at one of those lines and shows a predictor, I will go ahead and take the trade. Okay, but I'm not going to just jump into it willy-nilly right here because this is a thrust. I don't even have a minimum criteria trade yet. So even at the open, you got to be careful with that one. Okay, so we just let it move a little bit. We've drawn our lines on our chart. Now notice that we've got a little swing right here. Thrust, retrace, thrust, retrace, thrust. So technically it shouldn't be able to take out that. Now it might wick it, but if it's going to continue doing this, like we teach all the time, then it should hit its head right about there. And more than likely that predictor is going to pick that up. Okay. Now, could you be catching a falling knife? You'd put a real tight stop on it. See if we can get this little trade. Notice it's just now only 5:01. So, these things, 1 minute after is not a big deal at all. But you got to wait for it to at least come to where you've got drawn on your chart that it should. Okay. It shouldn't come any further than here. It could even come to right there. See this little swing on the left? Okay. And it could come right here to 72 and possibly bounce, but we're not going to chase it. Okay. And by the way, the whole idea of scalping, if you can get $300 or $200 and do several scalp trades in a morning, that's sometimes better than just holding these things. Now, what we're talking about tonight, though, is when do you actually go for the actual runner, though? When do you go for that runner? Okay, because once this prints, if we get this trade, once this prints, it's going to go 8, 10, and 20, but you can move that 20 out of the way. Okay, but you do want to go ahead and get your scalp under your belt. That way, you're not going to get hurt once it tags, like $180 to give an example. It'd take 18 ticks against me to break even. So, that's why we stress so urgently that you have to, get these scalps off. When I forget to do that, and I've talked to many traders. If you don't get a scalp off, these markets know right where you're getting in these trades. Have you ever noticed that? They know you're getting in at a certain point, and they know they're gonna come back and take you out before they run it. You know, to give an example, I see this all the time. If I was a betting man, and I don't bet, but anyway, here's a high, a low, and a higher high. My guess would be that they would wick this swing. You know, because that's what they do. You know, but when a swing is really established, like high, low, much higher high, then they're not going to take this one out unless they're going to, you know, possibly go into deeper retracements. Okay. Now, this is just shortly after 5 again. Does this make you a little nervous, like you really want to get into this thing yet? You know, try to shake that habit if you can, because you really need it to at least come back enough to get you in, you know, a decent trade that will pay you something. Okay. Because even if this thing pops up, I don't really care. It's got to at least pull back some. Okay. Or it's going to thrust up and pull back, and we'll take a pullback again. Okay. So let's see if we can get something. Notice we have not gotten a little thrust down retrace like I taught last week. Remember the trend line? We have not gotten a trend line trade. Why have we not gotten a trend line trade? Anybody? Because you have a high, you got a down candle, up candle, okay? But we haven't really done like any kind of an ABC to where we come down and at least get us to where we could draw a trend line. Okay? Let's see if we can get this trade. We're getting closer, aren't we? See how that's a little lower high? Let's see if predictor will actually show up. Hopefully we can get this. I'll go about 20 times and see if we can get it. Now, predictor is a pretty good little tool to let you know where these should hit their head. And notice that you don't even have a predictor. You've got, you know, blue ones here, you got a green one here, but you don't have another green one here and no blue one up here or anything yet. Okay, we're just biding our time, waiting for at least a retrace of what we call minimum criteria, or at least in my little sweet spot. This is my little sweet spot right in here. Are we going to get a predictor? We'll find out. And we're getting there. Everybody see that predictor right there? Now, if it doesn't take this out right here, because matter of fact, I would be probably firing this little puppy about right there myself, simply because they can't take out that swing and continue heading up. Okay, now that's what I'd call a little bit more gutsy trade, but you can also do it, let me just kill it, and you can also do it like this. Just simply turn on bar close. All right, see how you got a higher low? This is the actual trade that Linda, well, basically, she took it because I'm teaching her, just like I'm teaching y'all, and she watches the webinars too. Okay, but notice that we got a higher low. We almost touched our predictor, but not quite. Okay, if it touches that predictor, I am going to fire this, but you can wait for the bar to close, because this could be, you know, like a little falling knife too. Okay, see how that's perfectly right there? See how that bounced right there? Now, where would I put my stop? Anybody? Just in case. Well, I'd probably put mine about halfway in that predictor with exit on close. Okay, now granted, that's 7 ticks, so this could end up costing me about $200. Okay, now if you're not gutsy enough to do it like that, even though you diagnosed it in real time, then you really have to actually just go ahead and wait for the bar to close. Let's just do that even. Bar close, we'll take it. See there? We just happen to take it with a bar close. And I would probably put my stop again right in the middle of that predictor. Okay? Now, one thing I want to mention too is when they're actually going up, you'll notice that these predictors will hold. Okay. Now what I normally do, let me just show you something that I do just in case. If I get in 3 and this thing's not going to really go my way, then I'm going to do this. I'm going to put this here. I'm going to get rid of this one. I'm going to turn on sniper, and I'm going to hit enter. Okay. And then I'm going to take off 2 of those if it happens to take that out. That way I'm not taking a chance with my whole trade. Okay. Now as this stair steps up, you can actually move sniper also. Let's see, when you got in this morning, where did you take your scalp? Do you remember, Mindy? You mean when I took that 72, 74 that I called out this morning? Well, basically, I'll show you. There was actually a swing on the chart. We'll see it. This is way back in last night right now. Okay. Now, let's say that Linda only wanted, though, you know, a little scalp, but then let a runner run. Okay. Well, you could just watch your P&L too. You know, because one thing I'll give you an example. My son did when I was teaching him to trade. He would watch this P&L, and the moment it hit $300, he'd do this. He didn't care what it did after that. Now, I like a little bit more stair-stepping. Notice that you are stair-stepping now. See your little low, little high, little higher low, little higher high. You know, that technically needs to hold, but this for sure needs to hold. Okay. Now, we've got our scalp set at 8 and 10. All right, so let's see if we get our actual scalp. What I'm going to show you tonight, too, is, you know, keep in mind that you are always trading 4 different trends on your chart. Okay, it's extremely important to know that because, for instance, when I went long on that one this morning, I went long on that one because it literally bounced off of support, and it was a, you know, big level of support. Now, what would we do? We could run our runner up, right? But we need to notice that our stop went to break even. But if we come back to 72 from 86, that's going to give up 140 of that. Okay? But what you can also do is just simply turn on your line 6, to give an example. Okay? Your line 6 is this little deal right here. Turn on 6 and engage it. And a lot of times, Charles and I like to do exit on close. And you can even do it a couple of ticks under it if you want to. Okay? Or you could even draw a trend line on your chart. Okay? But if it takes you out, you know, let's say, for instance, you're thinking, you know what, this is a pretty good, why would I let that disappear when it already hit $400? You see what I mean? Now, will it go a little bit higher? Well, we're hoping now because we already lost our 400. We no longer have 400 on our radar. If this bar closes up, maybe we will. Maybe we'll luck out. But when you're trading and you see perfect trades set up on your chart, it doesn't hurt a thing in the world just to simply go, you know what, $350, that's pretty good. Well, there's 370. There's 390. Could you just get ready to close it when you're scalping? You could. Look at that. There's 400. There's 430. Is that enough for the morning? Click it. You're done. You see what I mean? I don't care if it goes any further than that. Now, if you don't want to do it that way, then do it based on like line 6 or watch the bar closes. Like these little candles here, this what I call a shooting star, that is usually ominous for pulling back. See them? See them right here? This one right here? More than likely that little candle will pull back. Now, could you put your stop right here? And you could, right? Okay. Now, would anybody be drawing on their chart to go short at all, like a trend line? Or do you want to just stay strictly with the trend? Because they do set up some pretty nice little shorts if you draw trend lines. But I can tell you this, to do that, I'd recommend this little chart right here. Because this won't fake you out as much. For instance, I'll just bring this over here like this. Remember to bring your third dot inside your pricing. And see, that's already breaking a trend line technically. See there? So could you scalp a trade like that? And the answer is yes. Now, what would you do though if you were scalping this? Where would you put your stop? Because this is still an uptrend, believe me. But I would want it to hopefully go up a little bit and then roll over, and then I put my stop. But couldn't you put your stop just right at your cost that you got in, just in case it decides to go against you? And you could, right? Okay, so that's a way to get quick little scalps. Now, what I'd do if I was going to do opposite, like against the trend, I would probably do like 3 contracts and just try to strictly get like 5 or 6 ticks. You're talking about literally 1 bar and a tick, but that's still $150 with, 3 contracts. And especially if you don't let it go against you. Okay, now see how that's actually getting a lower high now? A little bit lower high. Here's your lightning swing that's identified. It did take it out a little bit. Let's just play this forward and see where it went, just for the fun of it. You felt a little heat if you got in right there because it came up about 3 ticks against you. Now, real quick, diagnose your chart in real time. That is your lightning 3 low. If it does not take this out, are we heading down? And the answer is no. That's on your longer term trend. Okay, but could you actually, and a lot of our people do this, they short these things for little quick profits, but the thing you don't want to do is you don't want to just let it, run against you. For instance, if you would have done this and just gone for like 5 or 6 ticks, you would have probably gotten that before that even went back up because it broke that trend line. Okay. Now let's look at our chart, our actual chart, and see what it's doing. Okay. We're at mid-band. All right. Now, one thing that I want everybody to get in the habit of, if you're going to be more of a conservative trader, is this. Let me get rid of that. We're going to draw a line. That's our lightning 3 swing. We have, let's diagnose this thing. Thrust, retrace, thrust, retrace. Big thrust. So really it shouldn't take that out, should it? Okay. Now notice that it is checked here. See right on top of that little swing there? It has not checked here. Okay, so I like to draw lines on my charts where they have not checked yet. And let's see, they have checked here, notice that. So that one's good. Okay, so this is more than likely where it's going to bounce if we go that low. Now, we've got to get ready to take it at mid-band though too, right? But we've got to do it based on what? Well, how about drawing trend lines on your chart? Let's draw a trend line. Right now, your trend line is like this. That's about a 45. Now, if they go ahead and thrust down where we can get what we call a Y in, I'll go ahead and draw it, but just keep it out of the way for a minute. Just see what it does. We're drawing the Y right now. And we're going to see if we can get a trade. Now, predictor's saying that we should bounce right in through here. Okay, could we get ready to box this in, anybody? We absolutely could, right? So let's box it with a region. And I like to look at resistance, which is like right across here. I look to the left to trade the right, and I see a swing across here. So I usually put mine at a swing like that. And if it breaks that little box with a closed bar, I would probably go ahead and take a shot at a long. Okay, and if it keeps heading down at all, then I'll keep following it with my box. Now I'd also like this though, simply because it is breaking micro. There's my medium swing. I could bring this down like so, and even turn this on like that. So in other words, if it comes down this far, we'll go ahead and take a trade based on a bounce, or we'll take a trade if it takes out the top of the box. Okay. Now we could go back to our scalp mode by simply just turning on our contracts again. Let's see, what do the bars mean when there's a dot at the top of the bar? Well, anytime, Mindy, that you've got a dot, you're talking about this dot that you got the number, right? Is that what you mean? That's Lightning 3. See, when you're looking at the Lightning 3 chart, see, Lightning 3 is right here. Notice that Lightning 3, now Lightning 3 is here. See there? Okay, so you have a Lightning 3, but you don't have a green one, so it's not going to draw it yet, because the way Lightning 3 does is it goes from yellow to green. So far you've got yellow, yellow, but no green yet, because it hasn't done enough zigzagging on this large of a chart. Okay, but still in my own mind though, I look and say, okay, they have a thrust, retrace, thrust. So that is definitely a Lightning 3 to me. Okay. Now your primary Lightning 3 is all the way down here. They can't take this out and head up. Okay. Let's just see what they do. We may not get a trade, but we'll find out. I'll fast forward a little bit. There's a green, and there's your yellow. See, but you don't have a Lightning here. Now you can see how it's coming down. Coming down. Could you actually right now box this in? Okay, you're looking at what, 67? That's basically your little area that it should bounce. But keep in mind, we already missed the trade because we didn't grab it there. Notice that I had the line drawn perfectly, but we didn't grab it. So let's see if we can get anything else, and we'll box it. Let's see if we got something on our chart. Not yet. See there? Not yet. Came down awful close to it, but it never fired it. Oh, it changed days. That's why. See, it went to April 2nd. That's why that went off. That would have fired. That would have definitely fired. But the reason it didn't is because in Object Trader, we've got it where the session is turned off. Auto disable its session is true. The reason for that is because when a session changes, you want to, basically do your own diagnosis on the chart and everything, because that can be kind of like when we open that room. All right, now does everybody see that you could basically be still boxing this in? Look at this. You've got a thrust, retrace, thrust, retrace, thrust. So we got a swing right here. We got a swing right here. Okay, so we'll bring that down a little bit more just in case it bips up. And we'll see if we can get even in our lines. That'd be awesome, like right here. All right, we got our trade. All right, now we've got our scalp setting up. Got both scalps. Where would we put our stop? Anybody? Where would you put your stop on this one? Well, it already bipped down to right to where I drew my line, so I would probably put my stop right across there, exit on close. So you have a thrust, retrace, thrust. Okay, now if you're more of a conservative trader, instead of just buying that at support where I drew on my chart, then wait for it to break this little trend line here. And by the way, you can always draw a trend line like on larger moves like this at like about a 45-degree angle, and you'll avoid getting into some of them that'll actually just bip you in. Okay, we could change this to wedge and turn it on touch plus. and see if we get a little trend line break. Even that would be a little bit more conservative. What else would be conservative? Anybody? Well, see, you've got a low, you got a high, you have a higher low. So if they take this out, they're no longer heading down, right? See how it's doing right here? You got a little thrust up, a little retrace. That's your lightning 1. All right, and then you got to thrust up again. See? And see how they just check that? So could you be ready, for instance, if it even broke, this would be heading back up. You have a low, you have a high, you have a higher low. You could even draw a trend line across this little area if you wanted to. Okay? But if you want to wait for these things to absolutely get to where they start stair-stepping back, then you would have to take out this swing. Or get a low here, a high, higher low, and a higher high than this, which would turn on one of your meters. Let's see if it did it. I didn't trade at 2 o'clock in the morning. That's a low, high. Almost got our stop. There you go. See how you're starting to get a little phantom set up? Now that was a perfect phantom. That was a line 2 phantom, actually. Notice we didn't get stopped out on that because we had our exit on close. All right. But what if you're a very safe trader and you don't want to do that trade? Well, you can clearly see a low, a high, higher low, higher high. Box it in. You know, just box it right across here, like so. Swing across there. You might even raise it just a little bit so it's with that wick. See if that trade works out. Bouncing off support. I'd have grabbed it at 68, I think. It is starting to stair step though. There you go. Now, does everybody see how you can absolutely do a, you know, just scalp these things if you want to. You know, now this one hasn't. When you do a breakout trade, keep in mind you're going to have a little bit looser stop. I don't like breakout trades as much. I like support bounces. But, you know, for instance, right now you'd pretty much have to have your stop under here. And if they'll break this, you can put it here. Everybody see that? Now, if you're not into just scalping, let's face it, you could go ahead and put a target up here. Put your stop there. Exit them close. Okay. Now, when we opened the room this morning, let me show you what kind of happened, and I want to show you on the other chart because we don't care about this. This is replay right now, but let me show you on the black chart what I was watching for. Bear with me a second. I'll get the black chart, and we'll get rid of Lightning 2 for right now because I want to show you how you can watch your charts. All right. Does everybody see that right now, basically, you have a high, you have a low, you have a higher high. Now, if you drew, see, we drew this ahead of time. We said if it breaks this, we're going to be looking for shorts if it comes back and kisses and rolls. But if we get a higher low than this, see, this is your left side of your chart. All right. And let me draw Lightning 2 from up here. And let's just go ahead and fast forward this a little bit. I'll show you what happens. And by the way, you can definitely get ready to do trend lines on these charts. Could you take that trend line short if it broke it for a scalp? What does everybody think? Well, you actually could, because trend lines are where, you know, I get out of trades most times, and that's usually when they pull back and do those medium swing type, you know, trades. Let's watch it and see what it did. See there? It broke. It broke. That's a good scalp trade. Good scalp trade. You'd definitely be banking some coin right there, wouldn't you? That's right at Lightning 3. There's your one on the left-hand side. See there? Now, why did I take that this morning? Anybody? Because it bounced perfectly off of a support level. See how you draw on your charts? Now, let's say that you had shorted this and took your profit here. Could you have also drawn a trend line like this? Or even here, when it started stair-stepping even, and jumped in long? Where was this entry right here? I think some of our people actually got in a little bit later like that. Remember, I got in at 74, and I think it was on basically because it just bounced off of here. Okay? Because, see, your trend line is more like this. See this? Barely like that. Let me see if I can get that, hopefully. It's kind of hard to see those dots. There they are. See, this would have gotten you in quite a bit earlier, around 75. See there? See that trend line break? And that turned out to be a good trade. Now, does anybody see also where this thing actually did another beautiful thrust, another trend line break? You could have shorted some, right? Okay? There's just constantly trades on your charts. Let's draw. We're not even going to look at the other chart. We're just going to see if we can do trend lines and just see what happens here. All right, we've got about like that, right? I'm going to make that a little bit bigger so you can see it in a little bit different color. Let's just do it white. I got this going like 500 times. Let's just see what it does. Enough said, right? See there? Now, where was this? I just about bet you it was in Phantom. Let's look at it. Got a blue screen. Let me get the other. Where are you at? Yep, it was a Phantom. You see how you can get trades like that? Look at that trend line. We just drew it in real time, and look at that pop. And that's as far as we've gone so far. Okay? So how many of you are going to go ahead and scalp a lot more? And even, take some runners as far as that goes. But keep in mind, runners, what you want to do is you want it to be stair-stepping up on a long and stair-stepping down on a short. So if this quit stair-stepping up, why would you want to still be in it? Okay, so see, let's say that you got in down here because you should have. That's a phantom trade. But anyway, you're thrust up, you retrace. Thrust up a little bit, you retrace. Thrust up, you're getting a lower high there. You're barely taking that out. You're still in the trade, right? But as this starts stair-stepping back down and takes this out, you could definitely be out of that trade. And also, when it breaks a trend line for sure. Because at the time you didn't know that wasn't going to just hit that trend line and just keep going. But you can get out of that trade. All right? Now, would you get back in this trade, anybody? How about with a trend line? Let's see if we can. Let's draw it. We're not going to take it with object trader. I just want to see if it actually works. Trend line trade. Stops right there. Now stops right here. Stops right here. Stops right here. Stops right here. See your high, your low, your higher high. I think that's enough said about trend lines. What do y'all think? Now, like I said, we didn't go ahead and just, take these, because you could have clearly seen we would have added a lot more to our P&L. What do you see going on right there? That's too close to the end of the day. It was after 3:30, so I wouldn't have taken that one. Does everybody see, if you draw on your charts now, notice that we drew that trend line ahead of time, okay? If they bip you in it, you got to put your stop underneath the swing. Because when they break a trend line, you can't let them go back down below where, if they broke up, they can't take out that swing. Okay, just like if you drew a trend line here, to give an example, let's say that you drew this little baby one right here. When this popped up, your stop's there. When it pops up higher, you can bring your stop up higher. And as it keeps going, you just stair step it. Okay. Anybody have any questions on this? It's only been about 45 minutes, but let's see, when it got to 6202 this morning, you said take profit and keep hoping it would break through, but it didn't, and let it come back and stop me out of a $200 loss. Mindy, on your question, when it went to 6202, that's where I called it out this morning when we opened the room. I remember that. Let's look at it. Yeah, we hit 6204. But you remember, look at your chart though. Let me just show you something. Let's go back over here. Okay, let's say that a person didn't get in. Now, if you're looking at lightning, all four of your trends, that was a good area for support. I saw this morning, when I was actually short and this thing starts popping off that thing, I said, I'm not going to stay short on this little puppy, because when it hit that, it bounced pretty quickly. Okay, and all you had to do is draw a trend line. But anyway, let's look at when we opened the market this morning. Okay, let's see, we were at 755, and we got that little pop up, remember? And I called 6202. Okay, but where could you put your stop in a case like this, even when you're seeing this in real time? Because you could draw a trend line like so, like even with line 6, to give an example. Okay, just in case they decide to pull back. But keep in mind, until they take this out right here, they're not heading down. Okay, because remember what it did? This is where Charles and I called it at mid-band. Remember we said box it in? We boxed this little jewel in like this right here and got that trade, and it was a monster. Okay, but notice that what it did, if you draw on your charts, so you had a high, low, higher high, same low, higher high. So that's where I called it out, was 6202, and we nailed it. But I didn't get out myself till 6. Remember line 6? I called it. All right, but then we got back in here at the open, and we got that monster move. Okay. Now, one thing I want everybody to get out of the habit of, though, because it's disheartening as it can be to get up to 6233 and go all the way back down to 6210, even though that trade went up some more. That's very hard for me to do. Because, well, for one thing, what if I put my stop at mid-band and they decide to take mid-band out and check this little swing here instead? Take my mid-band out and, take me out. I would have lost even more. So the best way to do it is to pretty much draw on your charts and get those trend lines underneath those lows, and get out of those trades pretty quickly, because trend lines are important. However they do them, if they do them real tight or if they do them where they thrust and they pull, you got to wait for at least a thrust and a pull, and that's pretty much, and even if you got out here, it wouldn't have been a big deal, because let's face it, if you got out here, you left some on the table, but you still got a monster trade. That's the only thing about trend lines. You got to know where to draw them. And, a lot of times what I end up doing myself is I'll kind of follow line 6 as it's doing its thing. So you can see at the time that line 6 was right through here. So you just kind of bring your line accordingly, like so. And then that way it's a little bit better at not taking you out. See, it didn't close below it. Or just use line 6. Line 6 is actually pretty good for, getting out of trades and not leaving too much on the table. Because let's face it, if you got out on line 6 right here, even if you boxed it in again and got this trade again, it's better than letting it go. What if it would have done this? Thrust, little retrace, and then bam, all the way down to phantom and held this swing instead. And they could easily do that. Let's see, that's what I need to do because I sat and let it come back to mid-band. Well, yeah, that's the thing. Now, I actually took this trade this afternoon myself right here after the room closed. And I got to talking with some people on the phone and things like that. And I didn't get out on line 6 here. And this silly thing went all the way back to mid-band, if I remember right, after a while, like right here. But it still went up after that. So you can write a trade like that if you've got lots of profit in it. But, if you're just getting into a trade and getting a scalp, you don't want to let it do that. Okay? I don't personally like that kind of a pullback. But unfortunately, if you're ever going to get these big moves, you literally almost have to take them. And I hate it. I just literally hate it because, if you had 2 contracts on all the way up here and held 2, that takes back $500 of it. But then you get another 1,000 added. But, you don't know that at the time. That's why I still think it's a good idea, to take off, under these lows and everything and just get out of the trade when it breaks them. Because you can always get back in. But oil was definitely on a tear. It's still on a tear as far as that goes. See your higher lightning 3. See, here's your lightning 3 right over here right now. And here's a lightning 3 right here, but it was a double top, so that one doesn't count. That's your lightning 3. So basically, if this holds and this holds right here, this is probably going to head back up. Okay. Anybody have any questions on any of this still? It was like a deer in the headlights. That does happen, Mindy. It's kind of like, let me just show Russell today because remember I mentioned that I normally like to get my trading out of the way before the room because I like to actually literally watch the charts for everyone. Because Charles and I, we trade obviously, and this morning I got up and everything, but I kept trading because I was really liking oil today. But some of these moves like this that, let's see, let's go back to like 8:30. Where could you have shorted this if you were watching this? Because I wasn't watching it, to be frank. But notice how you had a lightning 3 swing right across here. Okay? That was support on lightning 3. And when it broke that silly thing, it took it down like a unreal. And this is that exact trade I was talking about with oil. Remember when I drew that little, on that black chart, that little bucket, so to speak, was right over, did I erase my bucket? A little, I must have. No, I didn't. There it is. That's that exact trade. It was breaking support. You want it to kind of break support, consolidate, hold resistance, and roll. Because that's that exact trade right there. See it? If you would have drawn your little region, for instance, like so, notice how it just kind of popped down below it, kissed it, and rolled. Yeah, and a trend line would have got you in that trade too, probably, because right in through here. Would have got you out of your long for sure. See here? I would have probably gotten out. Well, that bar closed above, but that bar closed below it. So I would have gotten out of a long right there for sure. You could have gotten back in, though. See it? Bounced off support. I think Charles took that one, if I remember right, didn't he? But then he missed the short. But, it is what it is. That's RTY. Kathy, I was talking about RTY just a minute ago. I was saying that was oil that I was talking about, this little deal here, but that's that exact type of trade is what I'm getting at. See, if this would have broken down and taken out this lightning to the left, let's just hypothetically say that you were watching it and it did this. Let's say that here instead it comes down like this and kind of bounces, all right, but then all of a sudden it takes it out. Of course, it wouldn't go straight down like that, but I'm just drawing for illustrative purpose. Let's say it went up and got a little lower high and everything, and then it finally broke like here. What you're looking for is that kiss right there. So sometimes they'll kiss them within 8 ticks. Sometimes they'll kiss them within 20. Sometimes they'll burst down, then they'll come back and kiss it. But if it does like this right here on Russell, where you can actually box it and it's already broken, you can definitely take those. And Russell is literally famous for this type of trading. The open of the market, it shoots up. You look to the left to trade the right. It even made a fresh high, and then it just tanks like unreal. Remember, we even talked about if you missed the trade, here was another one. You don't ever have to panic on trades, because here's a trade right here. That is a minimum criteria trade that we teach. Here's another minimum criteria trade that we teach. Didn't go to mid-band, did it? And here's another minimum criteria trade. Got closed above it, so I'd do it. See? And then here's another one right here. And you would have gotten filled and faked, and then it took you out at the top of the box. Okay? But was this actually a long trade yet? Mid-band like that? No, you'd box it in. And remember, we talked about that trade in the room. There was even another one right there. And then I think it pretty much did go down to here. And then, obviously, after that, it shot up like a little bird. But when you're trading, what you're going to want to do, is draw those trend lines on those charts, because they will make a difference in you seeing the trades and taking the trades. Okay, let's see. I think we're almost at the end of oil. Let's see I think that's all I've got recorded. See, it bounced off support. That's all I've got. It paused it. Okay, and another thing is too, notice that not every single day do they just move. But if you're getting that stair-stepping action, where they're stair-stepping and stair-stepping, you can pretty much take these trades, take these trend line trades. Now, when they're going sideways, you want to be careful. Would you have shorted this trade right here, though, if you would have been up at like 6 o'clock in the morning or so? That's a trade we teach. You could have gotten a nice little trade, but you've got to draw those trend lines on the charts. Because when this thing went down and it bounced off that support right there, it went up like a bullet. Okay. And in your mind, though, you're thinking, wow, this is short. But is it really short? Because if you look at this overall chart, I'll just draw it from here only. So you had a thrust, you had a retrace, like so, and you had another thrust. All right. So is that actually a downtrend if it doesn't take this out? No. That's why if you box this, now I was a little leery to box it, but I was watching that trend line. But if you box this silly thing, you would have probably boxed it like right in through here, something like that. Because see the lightning swing on the left, as you're kind of stair-stepping down, that would be stair-stepping up if it took it out. So there are definitely some good trades on the charts, and sometimes you really want to set in your mind to actually look at that little true trend chart, because it'll make a big world of difference. Now, of course, see, notice we didn't turn that off. Let's just reset it. But if you draw on your charts with this little trend deal, and see that was at what, 7:30-ish, I think, when that came down like that. Let's see here. I'm on the wrong day. Yeah, I'm on the wrong day. Today. There we go. All right, right here. You know, if you would have been drawing this and you set your major, of course my major is going to be way over there, so I can't really draw it, but let's just draw it like this instead. This would actually change that background to green, you know, the moment that was broken like that. So, you know, sometimes you've got to kind of look in your own mind and say, you know what, that's support right there, and we bounced off of it. You know, I started just to take it the moment it bounced off of it. I thought, nah, you know, it is stair stepping down, so they could cream me. But when did it start stair stepping back up? When it took out that swing right there. How many contracts did I take on that one, Mindy? 2. Now, when we got this little trade right here, though, you know, after we got taken out, this one here I did 2 also. And it turned out to be a pretty good little trade. This one at 8:30, it was this one right here. This one at 8:30 that we called out was pretty good little trade. And you again wanted to draw your trend line. You know, the moment you get to seeing these thrusts and retraces, you know, draw your trend line, and you can pretty much get out of these trades at pretty good times. Okay. All right. I hope this helped everyone. You know, the main thing is bottom line's bottom line. You know, just like, for instance, Linda today, she went for $267. She's a little over 800 in 2 days, which means she's 400 a day. If she averages that in 23 days, she should be at that funded stage. I'd like to kick her up a little bit more than that because I'd like to get it to where she doesn't go a whole month. Because with Top Step, they even go ahead and charge you even that next month. Yeah. Yeah. Always draw on your charts. It makes a world of difference. See where that was heading down, starts heading up. Mindy, they still didn't. I will get a hold of them. I didn't get a hold of them today because it was actually, I had call after call today for some reason. But I will get a hold of them tomorrow. Yeah, I just noticed that oil shot up too. I drew a trend line on a chart. Matter of fact, well, I can't show it to you because we've got replay data here, but you can clearly see if you drew a trend line on crude oil, it popped up. And could you have done that with 2 contracts and had a couple of $100 in your pocket? Yep. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you in the morning. The balance doesn't seem to reset properly. Okay. All right. Remind me tomorrow in the room, Mindy, and we will definitely get a hold of them. All right. Again, thanks, everybody, for coming. See you in the morning.